Part 1. The New Management. My name is John Miller. I'm 42 years old. For 15 years, I've worked at this company. It's not the biggest in the city, not the most prestigious, and definitely not the most exciting. But it was stable, predictable, a place where the same things happened in the same order every day, and I took comfort in that routine. I knew when the coffee machine would start its low humming at exactly 9:05. I knew when Henry, our accountant, would shuffle past my cubicle muttering his daily joke about retiring this year for sure. I even knew when Susan would start loudly complaining about her lunch order being wrong. Every little thing was like clockwork. My desk, like the office itself, was dull. Gray walls the color of old newspaper, outdated furniture, carpet with stubborn stains that predated my time here. There was nothing glamorous about it, but it was my space, my little island of familiarity. And then he arrived. I remember that day with painful clarity, February 3rd. We'd been summoned to the conference room for a big announcement. I didn't think much of it. Probably another structural change or some pointless motivational talk. But then our old boss walked in with a stranger, a man in his early 50s with slicked back hair and an expensive navy suit that looked like it had been tailored for someone who enjoyed intimidating people. "Ladies and gentlemen," our old boss said, voice quivering slightly, "I'll be retiring. And I'd like you all to meet the new CEO, Richard Klein." The man smiled, but it wasn't the kind of smile that warms a room. It was the kind that says, "I own this place now. Thank you for the introduction," he said in a sharp, commanding tone. "I've looked at the numbers. I've looked at the people. This company has potential, but right now, you're all operating below the standard I expect. That ends today. We're going to become bigger, better, and that means new rules." We all clapped, of course. What else could we do? But my stomach dropped. Something in his voice made me uneasy. I didn't know then just how much those new rules would change everything. The first blow came fast. By Monday, the entire work schedule had been rearranged. Effective immediately, Richard announced in his first staff meeting, "The workday starts at 7:30 a.m. sharp, and it ends when the work is done. No excuses. This isn't a 9-to-5 daycare. If you want to be part of this team, you'll give me results, not hours." I glanced around the table. Susan's eyes went wide. Henry stared at his coffee cup as if trying to disappear inside it. Richard didn't notice or didn't care. "And another thing," he added, pacing in front of us like a drill sergeant. "Every day, by 8 p.m., I expect a written report from each of you detailing what you accomplished. If I find your output lacking," he paused, "you'll hear from me personally." It was only the first week, and 2 new hires had already quit. I didn't blame them. The changes weren't just about hours. He started stripping away the small comforts that made this place human. "No personal items on desks," he declared. "They're distractions. You're here to work, not to stare at pictures of your family." One by one, framed photos and little trinkets disappeared from desks. The office became sterile, impersonal. Susan, as always, pushed back. "Isn't that a little much?" she said during a meeting. "A photo isn't going to ruin productivity." Richard's gaze sharpened. "If you need to look at pictures of your family that badly," he said, his voice cutting like a knife, "maybe you'd be happier working from home. Or not working at all." The room fell silent. It was the first of many times I saw Susan's confidence deflate in real time. Even the way we moved changed. Lunch breaks, cut short. Bathroom breaks, monitored. Conversations by the coffee machine, gone. We weren't co-workers anymore. We were chess pieces. And Richard was the player. I noticed the toll it took on people. Henry, our once jovial accountant, stopped making jokes. One afternoon, I saw him leaving Richard's office, his face pale, his eyes red. He looked at me, but said nothing. Mark, a young guy barely out of college, became a ghost. He used to chat with me about sports during breaks. Now he spent lunch at his desk, silently shoveling food into his mouth, glancing nervously at Richard's door. As for me, I kept my head down. It's what I'd always done. Keep quiet. Don't attract attention. But it wasn't enough. Richard held check-in meetings twice a week. We called them what they really were: public humiliations. He'd sit at the head of the table, lean back in his chair, and go down the list of employees. One Monday, it was Susan's turn. "Let's look at your report from last week," Richard said. He read it aloud, voice dripping with sarcasm, then looked up. "This is sloppy. Do you think this is acceptable? Honestly, Susan, maybe you'd be better off as a waitress. At least then mediocrity wouldn't hurt the bottom line." Her face went pale. Her hands shook. And what did I do? Nothing. We all did nothing. Because deep down, we were all thinking the same thing. Better her than me. Home wasn't much of an escape. I dragged myself through the door at 9:30, sometimes later. My wife, Lisa, would be waiting, arms crossed. "John, what the hell is going on?" she'd ask. "Are you living there now?" I'd sigh, loosen my tie, and say the same thing every time. "We've got a new boss." It was the only explanation I could give, but even I knew it wasn't enough. It didn't take long for my body to start rebelling. I woke up every morning with a heavy chest, as if a weight had settled on me overnight. My stomach churned before meetings. My hands shook when Richard spoke to me directly. I wasn't living anymore. I was surviving. Richard thought he was motivating us, but what he was really doing was breaking us. We stopped talking to each other. We stopped helping each other. The office that once felt dull but safe now felt like a battlefield. And I felt myself changing. Every morning, I told myself, just get through today. Every evening, I thought, how much longer can I take this? Something had to give. I just didn't know yet whether it would be the company or me. Part 2. The pressure. If part 1 was a shock to the system, part 2 was slow suffocation. Richard didn't just want us to work harder. He wanted to control how we thought, how we acted, even how we felt. "Everything you do reflects this company," he said one morning at our all-hands. "From the way you write an email to the way you walk down the hall. If you can't carry yourselves like professionals, you don't belong here." That week, he implemented what he called performance audits. It sounded harmless. It wasn't. He started walking the office floors like a prison warden. Not casually, patrolling. He'd stop behind you without a sound, watching you type, taking notes in his little black book. He timed how long we spent on tasks. He timed how long we spent in the bathroom. One afternoon, he stopped me as I was walking back to my desk. "John," he said, his voice smooth but sharp, "you've been away from your workstation for 7 minutes. Do you really think you have the luxury of disappearing for 7 minutes when the company is paying you?" I felt my face burn. I wanted to tell him I'd been in the restroom, that I wasn't some kid skipping class. But all I managed was, "No, sir. It won't happen again." He held my gaze for a long second before walking off. I hated myself for saying it. But what else could I do? The little freedoms we had left? Gone. Emails had to follow an approved template. No unnecessary pleasantries. "People don't care how your weekend was," Richard said. "They care about results." Lunch breaks were slashed to 20 minutes. "You want to eat? Fine," he said. "But don't confuse this place with a cafeteria." He even started inspecting our desks in the mornings. If anything was out of order, we'd get called out. "Your workstation is a reflection of your mind," he said once, staring at Mark's slightly cluttered desk. "And right now, yours looks like a dumpster." Mark apologized, fumbling to stack his papers. Richard just smiled, that cold, satisfied smile. The worst, though, were his feedback sessions. He'd call people into his office one by one, close the door, and keep them there for an hour, sometimes 2. When they came out, They didn't look like themselves. They looked broken. One Tuesday, I heard Susan in there. At first, her voice was steady. With all due respect, Richard, the timeline you're asking for isn't realistic. Then his voice cut through hers like a whip. With all due respect, Susan, I didn't ask for your opinion. I asked for results. Are you capable of that? Or do I need to find someone who is? There was a long pause. Then I heard Susan's voice again, but softer. I'll make it work. Good, he said, his tone like a judge delivering a sentence. Because there are plenty of people who'd kill for your position. When Susan came out, she didn't say a word. She went straight to her desk, sat down, and stared at her monitor for the rest of the day. By Thursday, she was gone. No goodbye email. No farewell lunch. Just an empty chair where Susan used to sit. It didn't stop there. Mark, the kid who used to talk about football, stopped talking altogether. His hands shook so badly during meetings that he couldn't hold a pen. One Friday, Richard chewed him out in front of everyone. If you can't handle the pressure, maybe you're in the wrong field. Maybe you're just not cut out for real work. Mark didn't even argue. He just stared at the table. By Monday, his desk was empty too. Even Henry, steady, unshakable Henry, wasn't immune. Richard loved singling him out for being too old school. These spreadsheets look like they were made in 1995, Richard said one morning, slamming a stack of papers onto Henry's desk. Maybe it's time you joined your retirement fund instead of holding us back. Henry nodded silently, lips pressed tight. I saw him in the bathroom later, splashing water on his face, breathing heavily like he'd run a marathon. I didn't know what to say, so I said nothing. The office kept getting quieter. No more jokes. No more chatter by the coffee machine. Even eye contact became rare. We were like mice in a maze, terrified to make a wrong turn. And Richard? He thrived on it. Home stopped feeling like home. I dragged myself through the door at 9:30, sometimes later. Lisa would be waiting, arms crossed, dinner cold on the counter. John, what the hell is going on? I'd loosen my tie, mumble something about a big project, and collapse on the couch. At night, I'd lie awake staring at the ceiling, replaying every interaction with Richard, wondering when it would be my turn. Sometimes I'd dream about him, standing behind me, watching me, judging me. I'd wake up sweating, heart racing. Lisa tried to be patient, but I could see it in her eyes. She was angry. You're always tired. You barely talk to me. You don't even look at me anymore, she said one night. I wanted to explain, but how do you explain this? How do you make someone understand that a single man can take over your entire head? I started drinking at night. Just a beer at first. Then two. It helped me sleep. Or at least it made me care less that I couldn't. One evening, I caught myself staring at the mirror, barely recognizing the man looking back. My hair was thinner, my eyes duller, my posture slouched like I'd been carrying something heavy for months. I whispered to my reflection, this can't go on. But then I thought, and what are you going to do about it, John? Quit. Fight him. The truth was, I didn't know. I just knew one thing. Richard had built his empire on fear, and it was working. But cracks were starting to form. In me, in all of us. I could feel it. Something was going to break. I just didn't know what. Or who. Part 3. The breaking point. I used to think you had to be loud to break. That people cracked with shouts, with angry outbursts, with throwing things at walls. But breaking can be quiet. It's missing an alarm and not caring that you're late. It's staring at your inbox for 20 minutes without opening a single email. It's realizing you haven't laughed, really laughed, in weeks. That was me by mid-April. The first real sign that my body was giving up came one Monday morning. I was shaving when my hand suddenly locked up, a sharp pain shooting up my wrist. The razor slipped, nicking my cheek. I stared at the blood in the mirror for a full minute. Just staring. And instead of cursing or rushing for a bandage, I thought, Figures. Can't even shave without screwing up. My hands had started shaking at work too. During meetings, I'd hold a pen just to keep them still. Sleep? Forget it. Most nights, I lay awake replaying the day. Richard's voice looped in my head like a broken record. You can do better. You're wasting my time. Do you even care about your job? I woke up every morning with my chest tight, like someone was pressing a cinder block against me. By the second week of April, I went to see my doctor. You're having stress-related symptoms, he said, scribbling notes as I described the shaking hands, the sleeplessness, the chest pain. Stress. I asked, my voice coming out too sharp. John, he said, looking up at me, whatever is happening at work, it's hurting you. Physically, you need to make changes, or your body will make them for you. I nodded like I agreed, but I didn't do anything. Because how do you tell your doctor? My job is killing me, but I can't afford to leave it. Lisa wasn't any softer than the doctor. That night, after I came home past 10, she finally snapped. I'm done, she said, standing in the doorway with her arms crossed. You're not even here anymore, John. You come home, you drink, you pass out. We don't talk. We don't exist anymore. I'm working, I muttered, too tired to fight. You're disappearing, she said, her voice cracking. I don't even recognize you. I didn't answer. I couldn't, because she was right. Then came the meeting. Richard's infamous Monday morning check-ins. Usually, I survive by staying invisible, answering only when called on, never volunteering, never giving him an opening. But that day, he came for me. John, Richard said, his voice cutting through the room like a whip. My stomach dropped. Yes, sir. He leaned back in his chair, folding his hands behind his head. Your report last week, sloppy. A few people glanced at me, then quickly looked away. I'll make sure. Make sure, he cut me off. You've been here, what, 15 years? And this is the standard you think is acceptable? You should be setting the bar for the others, he said, standing now, walking toward my side of the table. But instead you're dragging us down. Frankly, John, I'm starting to wonder why we're still paying you. The room was silent. I felt my face burning, my pulse hammering in my ears. I'll do better, I said quietly. Richard smirked. You'd better. Or someone else will. He turned away, moving on to his next victim. Just like that, I was dismissed. But I felt stripped bare. 15 years of service reduced to a single sentence. Why are we still paying you? I don't remember the rest of the meeting. I remember walking back to my desk, my hands shaking so hard I could barely type. I remember Henry giving me a pitying glance, but not saying a word. I remember thinking, this is it. I can't do this anymore. But for the first time, I didn't mean I can't survive this. I meant I won't. That night, I didn't go straight home. I drove aimlessly for an hour, windows down, letting the cold air sting my face. I thought about quitting, about walking in tomorrow, dumping my badge on his desk, and telling him exactly where he could shove his job. But then I thought about the mortgage, about Lisa, about the fact that I had no idea who I was without this job. Quitting wasn't an option, so I thought about something else. Fighting back. The idea scared me. Me, John Miller, office furniture in human form, going up against Richard Klein? But the thought wouldn't leave me. If I couldn't escape, maybe I could make him pay. I started small. I began saving emails. Every cutting remark, every impossible demand. I memorized the way Richard worked, who he favored, who he targeted, who flinched when he barked at them. Henry. He'd been here longer than me, and Richard had humiliated him more than once. Emma from HR. She avoided Richard like he carried a plague. Maybe I wasn't as alone as I thought. It wasn't much, but it was something. And for the first time in months, I felt awake. I wasn't stupid. If Richard found out what I was doing, I'd be out the door before I could pack my desk. But I'd spent too long letting him own me. Now I wanted something back. control, even if it was just the illusion of it. As I drove home that night, a thought settled in my chest, heavier than fear, but sharper than anger. He's going to regret underestimating me. Part 4. The Revolt. The morning it happened, I couldn't move. Not physically. I went through the motions, like a machine programmed to keep going. I got up, drove to the office, walked into the building, punched in my access code, sat at my desk. But when I opened my laptop, my hands froze. The emails were there, piling up. The meetings were there, stacking higher than ever. The demands, always the demands, staring back at me like 1,000 little fires waiting to be put out. But today, none of it mattered. Today, I couldn't breathe. I stared at the blinking cursor for over an hour. My mind was a haze. The weight of the room was crushing. It wasn't just the emails. It wasn't just the deadlines. It was the feeling that I was walking through someone else's life, someone else's skin. That I didn't know who I was anymore. Not without the work, not without the grind. 15 years. That's how long I'd been here. 15 years of watching people come and go, thinking I was untouchable, thinking I was safe. But here I was, paralyzed. Quit or stay. That was the choice, and there was no middle ground. Quitting meant throwing away everything I'd built. The career, the title, the salary that, although never enough, was the only thing that had given me purpose. I thought of Lisa. I thought of how much she hated my long hours, how she hated that the work was always first. But at least it made sense to her. At least I could provide. If I quit, I'd destroy everything. She wouldn't understand. She might even leave me. And deep down, I didn't know how to be anything but this guy who got up every morning and dragged himself to the office. But staying? That was a slow death. Every day under Richard felt like drowning, except it wasn't violent. It was quiet. It was suffocating, like someone was wrapping an invisible rope around my chest, tighter and tighter, until I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't exist outside of his demands. It wasn't just the public humiliations. It wasn't just the long hours or the impossible expectations. It was the relentless control, the suffocating grip he had on every aspect of my life. I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't live like this. But what else was there? I tried to distract myself. I went through the motions. I responded to emails. I faked my way through a few meetings. But my head wasn't in it. I was numb, and the thought of walking into Richard's office and enduring another round of criticism made my stomach churn. By noon, I was sitting alone in the break room, staring at the vending machine like I had all the time in the world. It wasn't the first time I'd felt like this, but today was different. I couldn't focus. My mind kept circling back to one thought. What now? I glanced at my phone. There was a message from Henry. You okay? Heard what happened in the meeting. I stared at it for a long time, not sure what to reply. After a minute, I typed, not really. You. A few seconds later, he replied, same. We should talk. It was like a lifeline. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel so alone. That night, I didn't go home immediately. I drove aimlessly for an hour, through streets I barely noticed. I thought about quitting, about walking into the office tomorrow, handing in my resignation, and leaving it all behind. But what did that look like? Lisa would be furious. She'd ask about our finances, about our future. She'd ask what I was thinking throwing it all away. But more than that, she'd wonder who I was without the job, without this life, without the career I had built for 15 years. I thought about the empty look she'd give me, the silence, the disappointment. Quitting wasn't the answer, but I couldn't stay either. I pulled over into a parking lot, feeling like my insides were on fire. My hands were shaking, sweat beading on my forehead. I needed to talk to someone. I needed to figure this out. And then it hit me. Emma from HR. She'd been quiet lately, but I knew she'd been watching. I knew she had to be feeling the same weight I did. I texted her, can we meet? Talk about Richard. The next morning, I met Emma in a small cafe 2 blocks from the office. She didn't look surprised when she saw me. I guess she had already expected this. We sat in a quiet corner, nursing our coffee like it was the only thing that could keep us tethered to reality. I'm not the only one documenting his behavior, Emma said, keeping her voice low. There are others. But she hesitated, glancing around nervously. No one's going to do anything. Richard's too powerful. Powerful. Or just, I trailed off, unsure how to say it. Toxic, she finished for me. I nodded. She continued. If you're going to do something, now's the time. But you need to know something. John, this isn't just about you. He'll come after you. Hard. Her words echoed in my head the rest of the day. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed awake, staring at the ceiling, knowing something had to change. Quit. That was the logical option. Walk away, cut ties, and let go of everything I'd worked for. But if I left, would I just be running from Richard? Would I be running from my own fear of starting over? Would I be a coward? Stay? Endure. Let him break me more. Let him keep tearing me down until there's nothing left. But what was left to me then? What was the point of enduring this agony if it meant becoming a shell of who I used to be? The clock ticked. Time was slipping away. The next morning, I woke up early, before Lisa, and sat at the kitchen table. I scribbled down everything on a legal pad. Options. The first thing I wrote was resign. I could just walk away. I could quit right now, throw it all away, and figure out the rest of my life later. The second thing I wrote was stay. Stay, endure, let Richard win. Or at least, let him think he did. The last thing I wrote was fight. I had the evidence now. I had something. Emma was right. This wasn't just about me. It was about everyone he'd broken. But could I fight? Or was that just a dangerous illusion? I didn't know what to do. I went to work like any other day, but everything felt different. The weight of the decision hung on me. I could feel it pressing against my chest. I knew I couldn't keep floating between decisions. I had to choose. Quit. Or fight. I had no idea which way I'd go. But I couldn't stand still anymore.